Hey, it's Angie at Block 81, and in today's video, I'm going to go over my favorite plugins for Craft CMS. Let's get started. Alright, so these plugins are not in any particular order with the exception of the last two or three, which I use on a case-by-case basis. The rest of them I tend to include on almost every single project because they are so useful. I've also tried to keep each description as short as possible, so if you want to learn more about these plugins, be sure to check the links in the description below. Okay, so the first plugin I've got here is CKEditor. Now, every CMS, whether it's Craft or some other one, obviously needs a text editor, and that's where CKEditor comes in. But the cool thing about CKEditor, specifically for Craft, is that you're able to include long-form content with nested entries. In this specific example, they're showing an image with other information such as the artist name and the year that the work was produced. However, this can be anything. It could be a slider, it could be a pop-up, it could be all sorts of things. So that's one thing that I really like about CKEditor. Plus, it's also customizable, so you don't have to have all the different formatting options to prevent issues on the front end of the site. The next plugin that I really like to use is oEmbed, and it's a real simple plugin. It basically just extracts media from YouTube and Vimeo. That's really the only reason I use it, is for YouTube or Vimeo videos, and just because it makes it super easy, specifically for the client when they're entering the content on their website. All they have to do is grab the link from the video that they want to embed, put it in the oEmbed field, and that's it. Everything else is taken care of by the plugin and the code that you write. Super simple. Next up is Hyper, which is by Verb, and Verb is probably my favorite plugin developer because they're just on top of things. They are very good with updates. Anything breaks and they have it fixed really quickly. Additionally, their attention to detail is really great. But Hyper in particular is a great way to create links easily, and not just URL links, but all kinds of links, including entries, emails. You can link to categories. You can create your own links. So it makes it real easy from a development standpoint to create different types of links, but specifically it's great for the authoring experience, because all the client needs to do is drop in the link and the link text and they're all set. There's obviously other options, but that is going to be on a case-by-case basis. But otherwise, just out of the box, Hyper is a great plugin. Another plugin that I like by Verb is Image Resizer. Now this one is more of a back-end tool, and all it really does is when you upload an image, any kind of image asset to Craft CMS, Image Resizer will take a look at it, and if it's too large based on the settings that you set up, it's going to resize that image, and you can either keep the original or have it just delete it or overwrite it for that matter. So for instance, sometimes clients, they don't really understand what the difference is between a 30 megabyte image file and a 2 megabyte image file, and that's a problem because of performance and all of that. But so what Image Resizer will do is it'll take a look at that file. Let's say that I have it set so that it's no larger than 2,000 pixels wide or tall, just depending on the orientation of the image. It'll crop it to that. It'll resize it, not crop it. It'll actually resize it to meet those parameters so that the image file stays small, and then you have something smaller to work with and you're not causing a lot of performance issues down the road. Next up is Craft Mix. Now, I mention this right now because I do use Laravel Mix in my Craft CMS projects, and this just makes it easy to link up your CSS and your JavaScript inside of your Twig templates. So that's really the only reason I have it in here. Now that said, I am very slowly migrating projects over to Vite. And so for that, I will be using the Vite plugin by NY Studio 107. And so, yeah, that's pretty much those two plugins. That's all they're there for. They're just a utility for development. This other one that I like is also by Craft CMS. It's Postmark. I use this plugin for email delivery because I primarily use Postmark for clients, for client websites when it comes to sending out the emails that Craft sends out. whether it's a sign-up email, a forgot password email, or any of those activation emails or whatever. Postmark is a really good platform, and they have a very generous free tier. So I highly recommend that. And if you are going to use Postmark with Craft, definitely look into the Postmark plugin. Another plugin by NY Studio 107 is the SEOmatic plugin, which is anything and everything you've ever wanted in a SEO plugin. It not only does, of course, the usual like title tag, description tag, keyword tag if anybody's still using that, and other things like that, but it also deals with your robots text file, your humans.txt file, your Facebook open graph, and by default it blocks any of the AI tools from scraping your site. You can disable that if you want. There's a lot of things that you can do with this. In fact, I think I have barely scratched the surface with it, but it is hands down the best SEO plugin for Craft CMS, and it also makes SEO easy for content editors. This next plugin, also by NY Studio 107, another really good developer in the Craft community, is called Template Comments, and this is again primarily a developer resource. So what this does is it basically just in your source code, it shows you what template a particular part of your code is coming from. And so that's real handy, particularly if you're using something like Matrix or have a lot of different fields. And so when you look at the source code and you're trying to figure out where to edit something, especially when you haven't looked at a site in a while, this is really handy. So I really recommend this. I've been using it only for the last, I don't know, maybe 4 months, 6 months. And it has been a game changer for me. Another plugin by Verb is Formie. Now this is one of those that I don't use necessarily on every single project. Not every project that I build for clients will have a contact form, for instance. Most will, but sometimes clients prefer to use a different platform. But when they don't really have a preference, then I turn to Formie. And Formie for me is the best one out there because it's so easy to use. The UI is really great. And the output of the actual fields is very customizable. So I definitely recommend this one. This next plugin is called Blitz, and it's by Put Your Lights On. And it is basically a page caching plugin. Now, this is one that I don't use very often. And the reason for that is because a lot of the sites that I'm creating aren't getting a ton of traffic, and the native caching within Craft, including the template caching, is usually sufficient. When I start running into caching issues or performance issues, then I will turn to something like Blitz. I'm not going to say that I'm really proficient at it. I've only, again, kind of like one of the other plugins I mentioned before, I've barely scratched the surface, but I do know I've heard of developers that just swear up and down by it, but it is very much a good plugin to use. The last plugin that I'm going to mention is one that I use from time to time depending on the project, and it's called Entry Type Rules, which is by Foster Commerce. Now, this one makes it so that you can limit how many entry types are, or entries per entry type are allowed in any particular section within Craft CMS. Now, that was kind of a convoluted way of saying it. It's not a great description, but here's a good example. Let's say you have your site pages and you have a particular entry type for, let's say, the contact page, but there's only ever going to be one contact page. So what you want to do is set up a rule where for this particular entry type, which is a contact page entry type, you only ever want to have one entry. So that's what entry type rules does. It makes sure that you only have that one entry so that you're not allowed to basically create additional contact pages. Now, again, it's not something that you're going to use that often, but when you need it, it is pretty handy. All right, so that is the list of plugins that I use on most, if not all, of my Craft CMS projects. As I mentioned before, the links to all of these are in the description below, and if you have any questions, definitely leave a comment. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.